Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad to have you with us tonight. My name is Adelicia Hayes Franklin Ackland Cheatham. Allow me to present to you my second husband, Colonel Joseph Ackland.
Good evening. Let me add my welcome to Adelicia's.
Welcome. Bet you're wondering, who is she? Well, let me introduce myself to you. I'm Miss Jane Henry Thomas, called Miss Jane. I was born on September the 2nd, 1800, in Cumberland County, Virginia.
Of Mount Olivet Cemetery. I'm Lieutenant Henry M. Doak, Confederate States Marine Corps. People may stand at ease, smoke them if you got them. No, the Confederacy actually had a Marine Corps. Not very well known, but we served all over the globe. We had Confederate Marines that served in the northern part of the Bering Sea, almost up to the Arctic Circle. We served in the North and South Atlantic, into the port of Gibraltar. We served in the South Pacific, the South China Sea. We had a Confederate Marine detached all the major ports of the Confederacy up and down the East Coast and across the Gulf. We had a Confederate Marine gun crew that served on board the CSS Virginia in its famous battle against the USS Monitor, the first clash of the ironclad ships at Hampton Roads, Virginia. We also had a Marine gun crew that served on board the CSS Tennessee.
First thing I need to tell you folks is that it was politics that drove me to my grave. And by the way, my actual grave is just across the road. You'll pass it as you're walking away from here. You'll notice Bell on the front of it. Maybe some of you wonder, who in the world is John Bell? Well, amongst other things, I ran for president against Abraham Lincoln. And if I'd been elected president, there would have been no war.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marion Scott Pilcher. I was a very prominent man in my period. I was a steamboat captain. And during this period in American history, steamboats were the backbone of this part of the nation. John Fitch developed the first steamboat in 1787. He ran it up and down the Delaware River. It had a steam engine and a dozen canoe paddles attached to it to give it power to go up and down the rivers, unlike the paddle wheels that I used during my time period.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am John Overton Jr. I'm pleased to have your company. It is not my custom to entertain like this. It's usually in my house, but under the circumstances, my being deceased, nothing has been prepared.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen. Brigadier General William Nelson Rector Bill at your service. It'll be my honor to share with you a little bit about my military service in the late unpleasantness. But I feel obliged to tell you that this is not where I am buried. I am actually buried back there closer to that tree line near Generals Cheatham and Maney, alongside my beloved wife Felicia Bass, whose brother I believe you'll meet a little bit later this evening. Though I was born in Bardstown, Kentucky in 1826, my family moved to the Arkansas Territory before my 10th birthday, and I've always considered that to be my home. That's where I received my appointment to West Point in 1844. I graduated 4 years later as a second lieutenant of the infantry, and my first years in service were in the Northwest as an infantry officer, until my transfer to Kansas in 1855 to Kansas and the cavalry. I spent the next 6 years gaining valuable combat experience fighting the Comanche and other Plains Indians. Now, the Comanche, who I consider to be some of the best light cavalry in history, were fearsome warriors. They rode into battle full tilt, screaming like demons in hopes of panicking their opponents. Now, the reason I even bring this up is that the Comanches especially like to raid down into Texas. Well, when they did, they often came up against companies of Texas Rangers. Now, the Texas Rangers were not panicked by this screaming. In fact, they took to screaming of their own when they rode into battle against the Comanche. And when these Texas Ranger companies were mustered into Confederate service, they took to screaming like demons when they rode against Yankee cavalry. And I sincerely believe that this is the origins of our own rebel yell, as other Confederate troops began to take up this practice of screaming when they went into battle.